The sky above Thornfall Academy churned like an angry sea, a blend of gas storm striations and smog-heavy clouds pulsing with bioelectric discharge. Lightning flickered violet across the jagged mountain ridges that framed the Academy's perimeter, throwing brief halos around the jagged watchtowers. Someone coughed into their respirator. Cadet Marcus Hale adjusted the weight of his oxygen pack, shoulders aching under the pressure. Sweat clung to the inside of his environmental suit, pooling in spots that made him want to scream. 5 days into integration training, and the suit smelled like scorched nylon and dried blood. His boots squelched faintly with each step. The others were watching. Not the instructors, those massive insectoid tacticians with gleaming eye plates, didn't care unless someone collapsed. It was the other cadets. Aliens from Deathworlds and high-pressure planets, battle-tested species who now trailed their multifaceted eyes and cranial sensors toward the lone human like he was a walking anomaly. Because he was. Soft-skinned mammals still vertical, one of them muttered as Marcus dragged his body up the slope of Ash Hill. The voice came from behind Kavrekt, a tall, metallic, frilled quadruped from Drellin VI, whose triple lung system gave him stamina that outlasted most fuel cells. "I'm watching him sweat through the outer shell," said another. "That armor isn't even thermal sealed. He should be seizing up by now." "He doesn't know when to stop," said the last voice lower, weightier. That was Threx, squad leader. The one everyone else shadowed. 7 feet tall, armor-plated skin like volcanic basalt, and an air of smug certainty Marcus had gotten very used to. He ignored them. The hill kept rising. Training at Thornfall wasn't designed for cooperation. It was a culling gauntlet, a forge of attrition. The environments rotated every week, from ammonia rains to vacuum spikes, sudden gravitational shifts to sonic pressure traps. The human shouldn't have lasted longer than a few days, but he had, and that was starting to bother people. When Marcus collapsed onto his bunk later that night, he peeled the suit away from his skin and checked the bruises forming on his ribs. The med patch on his side had already begun turning a dull green, absorbing excess fluid from the tissue underneath. 4 cracked ribs. From the last drop chute, he'd been told to rest. He'd gone right back to drills. The Academy didn't hand out favors. His bunk was tucked between 2 larger ones, scaled up for Threx and Kavrek's bulk. He'd been assigned to their squad by accident or on purpose, depending on who you asked. When humans were transferred into the Deathworld program, it was mostly symbolic, observation, curiosity. No one expected performance. Especially not the kind that left 2 of their best cadets trailing him during the survival track run last week. He closed his eyes. Marcus was an object of study. The Academy doctors had done full scans twice already. His recovery times were flagged as abnormal. Not accelerated in the science fiction sense, he still needed weeks to heal bones, and cuts had to be closed manually. But he endured more before reaching the point of failure. Where others would scream or shut down, Marcus would grit his teeth and keep moving. Alien cadets began whispering. Humans were supposed to be delicate, vulnerable, thin-skinned and soft-boned. So, why was he still upright after hiking 10 miles through sulfur winds, while others dropped out halfway? Why hadn't the hypothermia killed him in the ice lung vault? Why did the nerve agent only make him vomit instead of collapse? Answers didn't come, and so, resentment did. The teasing began subtly. Jokes about his fingers, how flexible they looked. Someone suggested they'd snap like stalks of dry weed under pressure. They made fun of his scent, calling it organic swamp. Someone brought a bowl of gelatinous paste to the mess hall and said it reminded them of a human brain. Laughter followed. Marcus ate in silence. Later that week, they upped it. During cool-down, someone imitated his voice mocking the flat, tone-weak noises his throat made. Another mimed walking upright with exaggerated stumbling. He ignored that too. But Threx didn't like being ignored. The leader watched Marcus in the showers that evening, silently, arms folded. He leaned against the wall, saying nothing until Marcus walked past. No armor, no fur, nothing but meat and bone. Marcus didn't reply. You know what a peeled fruit looks like to a predator? That made Marcus pause. Threx tilted his head. It's a joke. You just haven't learned to laugh yet. The prank came on the 4th night. Marcus had fallen asleep early, too exhausted to double-check his cot. He didn't feel them come in, not even when the low-dose sedative mist was sprayed across his pillow, but he felt the cold. And the burn. When he woke, it wasn't to shouting, but to laughter, high-pitched, overlapping tones, modulated to carry across the bunk room. Kavrek sat near the wall, clutching what looked like a makeshift grooming unit. Kavrek stood beside Marcus's cot, holding the shears. The others pointed. Marcus sat up. His scalp stung, badly. Hands reached up instinctively, and he felt it. His hair was gone. Shorn away in uneven tufts, patches of skin visible under raw, angry scrapes. The blade had nicked in more than one place. There were shallow cuts behind his left ear, not enough to bleed profusely, just enough to mark. Someone whistled. Naked head. Is this human tradition? A shedding ritual? Looks like exposed tissue. Marcus stood. The room fell quiet. He didn't shout, he didn't curse, he simply stepped away from the cot and walked out, barefoot, passing between the rows of alien cadets without a sound. The door hissed shut behind him. Threx stared after him for a long moment, unsure why his stomach felt like it had dropped several feet into his abdomen. He didn't show for mess hall. Didn't report to early warm-ups either. The instructors logged it. No punishments. They must have figured he was recovering or emotionally compromised. Humans, after all, were famously fragile when it came to social dynamics. But Marcus did appear for the environmental rotation at noon. The outer dome had been reprogrammed to simulate a high-acidity swamp biome. Most of the cadets came in suited, armor sealed tight. Marcus came in with only his base fatigues and a thin rebreather. The exposed skin on his scalp was red and inflamed. He'd cleaned the cuts, but not covered them. The others watched as he moved, silent, slipping through the marsh track with efficient, mechanical focus. Threx trailed him for most of the run, joking just loud enough for others to hear. Must be nice, light on your feet without all that hair. Hope you don't get sunburnt, soft skull. Marcus didn't respond. Later that night, in the weight resistance chamber, it happened. The squad was told to spar. Hand to hand, no weapons, max restraint protocols. Threx stepped forward before anyone else could. Let's see what the bald ape can do, he said. Marcus didn't smile. The two squared off, in the center ring. Threx's screams echoed all the way to the upper barracks. Then silence. Not the comfortable kind, this one prickled. It seeped under door frames and crept into the backs of throats. Cadets who'd once walked past Marcus with smug little glances now avoided his eyes. Others whispered in alien tongues that didn't carry inflection but still managed to drip with unease. Marcus wasn't proud. His knuckles were raw, 2 fingers still stiff from the impact. The ligaments in his right wrist ached when he moved it. Even with compression wrap, the inflammation hadn't gone down. He had bruises along his forearms from when Threx had tried to thrash out of the hold. None of it made him feel better. He didn't report to drills the next day. The instructors didn't reprimand him. Maybe they thought he'd earned a pause, or maybe no one knew quite what to do with a cadet who dismantled another with the kind of control only medics or killers possessed. Meanwhile, the medbay was lit non-stop. The surgical unit hovered over Threx for 4 hours. The Academy's field medtechs were good, but not miracle workers. Joint damage like his wasn't simple to reverse, especially when torn clean across 2 axes. They injected growth accelerants into the cartilage sites, attempted nerve reconnections, then manually reinforced his shattered scapula with bioresin. Threx was out of commission indefinitely. 6 weeks before we even think about stress loading those limbs again, said the lead trauma surgeon during the report. Assuming the nerve scaffolding integrates. Assuming no rejection. This was a methodical disassembly. Not rage. Not accident. This was... She trailed off. No one wanted to finish that sentence. Marcus sat on the edge of the auxiliary dormitory bunk, turning a cold gel packet over in his palms. The air smelled like antiseptic and rust. He hadn't slept more than a few minutes. His scalp was scabbed in 3 places. The skin was angry and pink along the crown, some burns from the blade, some from whatever oil they'd used to slick it. He hadn't even looked in a mirror until that morning. When he did, the image startled him. He looked alien himself. Not because of the bare skin, but because of the eyes. The quiet. Later that cycle, the Academy counselor, a soft-bodied Soren named Jet, requested a session. Marcus almost didn't go. But a summons wasn't optional. He arrived on time, sat without expression. Jet species didn't have mouths, only a sort of vibrating frill that translated language through acoustic pulses. Their tone was always neutral. You are not under disciplinary review. Jet began, but the other cadets are displaying signs of heightened behavioral agitation. Marcus stared at the floor. You are also injured. He looked up. They shaved my head while I was unconscious. You know that, right? Jet paused. We do. It wasn't a prank. It was targeted. Understood. Marcus didn't say anything for a long time. Then he rubbed the back of his hand, flexed the still swollen fingers. I didn't want to hurt him, he said finally, but I couldn't keep being a joke. Word traveled. Cadets who'd mocked him now walked differently when he passed. Not out of respect, out of uncertainty. He knew how to paralyze the knee, one whispered. He didn't just fight, he analyzed. Do humans train like that? That's medical-grade anatomical targeting. He held back. That last part came from Kavrekt. Kavrekt had gone quiet since the fight. No jeers, no snide remarks in the training yard. He was the only one who'd seen Marcus pull a strike mid-motion, shift the vector just before impact. He knew Marcus could have crushed the tracheal ridge or torn the spinal node. He didn't. And that restraint was more terrifying than anything else. 2 days later, during tactical theory, Marcus was reintroduced to squad rotation. His new group included cadets from methane worlds, high-density gas giants, and one silicon-based crystalline life form with reinforced limbs. None spoke directly to him, but none mocked him either. During the zero-grav combat drill, Marcus let himself get thrown off axis 3 times. Deliberately. He didn't overperform. He didn't try to dominate the circuit. When one cadet fell during a spin cycle, Marcus helped him up. People noticed. It wasn't humility, it was control. And control was dangerous. Meanwhile, the medical staff continued working with Threx. He was conscious again, but immobile. His limbs were in stasis shells, half tech, half organic recovery pods that regulated nutrient flow and restructured connective tissue. The Academy's lead orthopedic regrowth consultant, a crustacean like being named Faril, had already warned of lasting nerve dullness. Full dexterity may not return. Threx didn't respond. He just stared at the ceiling, replaying the fight in his mind. The look in Marcus's eyes, that blank calm, the way he'd calculated, not driven by bloodlust but by knowledge, purpose. Like a surgeon. Marcus found himself alone more often after that. He didn't mind. He needed time to process. His hands were healing, he'd been issued anti-inflammatory meds and soft braces. But the pain lingered, and sleep came in fragments. Sometimes, he woke gasping, unsure whether he was in his bunk or back in the ring, his palms slamming bone. The Academy's Xenopsych unit checked in again. He said he was managing. That was enough. Hair started growing back slowly. Patches of dark stubble across his scalp. On the 10th day after the incident, someone left a package at his bunk. Unmarked. No data stamp. Inside was a heat-treated combat bandana, reinforced for protection against ultraviolet and minor abrasions. A practical gift. Not an apology. But maybe something close. That evening, in the mess hall, Marcus noticed Kavrekt watching him. Not mocking, not measuring. Just watching. After a while, the alien stood and walked over. He didn't sit, just hovered. I studied human physiology last night, Kavrekt said. Your species has 75 major joints and over 600 skeletal muscles, more than twice the complexity of my kind. Marcus looked up. Okay. I used to think your kind were inefficient, fragile, prone to failure. Now I think perhaps we misunderstood. Misunderstood how? You weaponize fragility. Marcus frowned. What does that mean? You break easier than we do, but you adapt faster, you endure longer. And when you hurt at 0420 local time, the emergency klaxon shattered the barracks' silence. Marcus was already awake. He hadn't really slept too many pressure shifts in the sinus dome, too much humming from the geothermal regulators just beneath the floor. The ambient heat made the burns on his scalp flare with an annoying, low-grade throb. When the lights kicked on, he slid off the cot and pulled his boots on without hurry. Others were scrambling, still half-dazed. Level 3 atmospheric breach, the comm barked. External simulation chamber compromised. All cadets to decontamination lock for pre-exposure calibration. Full gear. Now. Marcus's breath caught for half a second. Exposure protocol wasn't a drill. 5 minutes later, he was suited and sealed, standing on the lower launch tier, flanked by cadets from over 10 systems. Kavrek was 2 positions down. The crystalline cadet, Mora, stood just behind. No one spoke. On the wall screen, the briefing streamed in sharp bursts. Simulating Class V storm event from Charon Belt. High toxicity, neurocorrosive particles, visibility under 2%. Internal core heat spikes. Sustained exposure, no more than 12 minutes. Marcus clenched his jaw. 12 minutes. That wasn't much time for navigation, even less if you were dragging someone. Team assignments are randomized, came the follow-up. Survival objective: extract the embedded locator beacon and return to lock chamber. Penalty for mission failure: full reconditioning. Which meant 4 days in the medical dome, strapped to neural dampeners. Everyone shuffled as the chamber doors opened. The stink of synthetic ozone and copper hit immediately. The storm simulation began. Inside the dome, chaos. Visibility wasn't just low, it was vicious. The toxic mist was programmed to degrade sensors, forcing manual orientation. The ground pulsed with thermal fluctuations, and brief electromagnetic pulses flared against the horizon. Marcus moved low, near the uneven terrain. His partner had been assigned randomly, someone from a high-altitude avian species who was already wheezing despite filtration. 3 minutes in, someone screamed. He couldn't tell who. They weren't in his line of sight, but the silhouette was unmistakable, staggering, coughing, visor flickering. Kavrek. Instinct pulled Marcus sideways. His partner was struggling, lungs not calibrated for this pressure, but Kavrek had collapsed. His larger form was curled against a rock outcrop, leg twitching in short, jagged bursts. Marcus tapped his comm. No response. EMP interference. He muttered something under his breath and pivoted. Reaching Kavrek took almost a minute. By then, the storm's neurocorrosive layer had started biting into the exposed seals of older suits. Not enough to breach yet, but definitely enough to cook flesh if left too long. Kavrek, Marcus shouted, checking the respirator valve. Unresponsive. He ran a systems diagnostic through his gloves. The filtration unit was clogged with microparticles. Breathing was minimal. So, he did the only thing he could. He grabbed Kavrek's harness and started dragging. 12 minutes. It took 5 just to backtrack to the ridge slope. Marcus's suit alarms began pinging, core heat rising, pulse near redline. Kavrek was heavy, even half-lifted using terrain incline. The drag weight pulled at Marcus's chest with each step. His shoulder felt like it might rip out. The ridge climb burned through another 3 minutes. His scalp itched under the bandana. The old wounds stung with the sweat soaking into them. 7 minutes. The dome's beacon glinted faintly to the east. Marcus dropped Kavrek behind a vent stack and keyed the emergency transponder on his suit. It blinked blue. Signal reached. Extraction registered. When they finally sealed into the lock chamber, he collapsed against the wall. His lungs burned, hands shook, fingers barely unclasped the gloves before the techs flooded in. They went straight for Kavrek. Pulse erratic, but stable. Filtration collapse nearly total. He wouldn't have made it another 60 seconds. Marcus lay still. They didn't even speak to him at first, just ran a scanner. Readings scrolled in crimson. Core temp, 103.1. O2, saturation, 88%. Skin breakdown, moderate dermal blistering. Right rotator strain, likely grade 1. Get him a drip. Anti-inflammatory, then cool compression on upper torso and scalp. That bandana's soaked through. Someone started unwrapping it. He flinched. Leave it. The tech hesitated, but complied. The med bay was sterile and humming. He sat on the edge of the reclined med chair, IV running. The physician, same Soren from before. Jet stood quietly. You shouldn't have gone back for him. Marcus blinked. He'd have died. Correct. And you might have too. Marcus exhaled. That's not how it works. Not for us. Jet's frills fluttered. Explain. You don't leave someone behind. Not if you can help it. Doesn't matter what they did before. You still try. Jet didn't answer. Just logged the vitals. But the silence was thoughtful this time. By morning, the story had spread. A human again surviving a zone breach, again performing beyond the projected endurance metrics. And this time, dragging someone who'd helped humiliate him just weeks before. Kavrek regained consciousness mid-afternoon. His first words were hoarse. You're a lunatic. Marcus didn't respond. You should have left me. Probably. Probably. I wouldn't have saved you. Good thing we're not the same. Kavrek didn't argue. The Academy staff reviewed the incident and uploaded the footage sanitized, of course. Names removed, faces blurred. But the story was out. The fragility of humans was being reconsidered. Not dismissed, but reframed. Marcus still wasn't faster, or stronger, or genetically reinforced. But he adapted. He survived. And when the moment came, he endured pain, ignored past grudges, and dragged a heavier species across terrain that ate through armor plating. There was no medal for that. 3 weeks had passed since the storm simulation. The medical staff cleared Marcus for full mobility, though the shoulder wrap was still recommended during resistance drills. He kept it on longer than needed. Not because of pain, though there was still plenty of that, but because it served as a quiet reminder. Nothing at Thornfall Academy healed fast. Not joints, not respect, not trust. But everything healed. Eventually. At 1,300 on day 23, Command issued a formal rotation change. Squad Bravo, Marcus's original unit, was disbanded and reassigned across the Academy's disciplinary grid. Kavrek was moved to logistics. The crystalline cadet, Mora, was promoted to drill assistant. And Marcus Hale, formerly Naked Head, Soft Skin, and the Bald Ape, was reassigned not to another cadet squad, but to Instructor Oversight Protocol. Not a promotion, not exactly. More like observation. He was briefed in a low-lit conference chamber by a Kellen named Director Use, who resembled a hybrid between a horned beetle and a flame-licked tortoise. Use didn't waste time. You know what you did? Marcus nodded. And what you didn't do? Another nod. Use exhaled through its siphon vents. We don't know if you're an anomaly or a representative sample of your species, but your ability to harm and not destroy is being studied. Marcus didn't like that word. I'm not a test subject, he said. No, you're a mirror. Use didn't elaborate. That week, Marcus was assigned to shadow new squad formations. No drills, no combat. Just observation and inter-cadet support. The aliens didn't know how to take it. Some flinched. Others avoided eye contact altogether. Only one approached him directly. A fresh recruit from Natharax Prime, armored in overlapping black carapace and speaking in the slow, deliberate syntax of someone translating each thought. Are all humans like you? Marcus thought about it. No, most are better. But you broke someone. Marcus didn't respond at first. Then he said, I stopped someone, that's different. The recruit looked confused, then nodded. Slowly. By the 4th week, word of his earlier retaliation had reached outside Thornfall. Other academies, other species, even human institutions were requesting performance reports. The incident was referred to in data briefs as the Precision Disassembly Event. Marcus hated the name. It sounded clean, technological, sterile. It wasn't. He still remembered the crunch of cartilage, the skin tension beneath his palms. Threx's expression, not rage, not fear, but disbelief, as each limb failed. Not because a human had hit him, but because a human had known exactly where. Threx requested a meeting. It came through official channels, passed along by medical supervision. Marcus accepted. The recovery ward smelled like sterilized salt and artificial aloe. Threx sat propped up in a reclined bed, limbs still wrapped in biomechanical scaffolds. His exoskin was lighter now, stress loss, likely. He didn't waste time. You knew the outcome before you touched me. Marcus said nothing. You studied us, our weak points, our failures. You knew where to strike and how hard. You even knew how not to kill me. Still nothing. You made your point. We mocked the skin, but we never looked underneath it. Marcus let out a slow breath. It wasn't about proving something, it was about stopping something. You didn't see me. You saw a symbol you wanted to humiliate. Threx looked away. And you turned that humiliation into a weapon. Marcus hesitated. I hated what I had to do. I didn't. Marcus blinked. I hated that you could do it, Threx clarified. That you understood me better than I understood you. That under all that soft flesh was a soldier we couldn't even classify. Neither spoke for a moment. Then Threx reached out with his still functional left hand. Marcus took it. Not because he forgave, but because some things had to end in silence, not vengeance. Later that cycle, Marcus returned to the training dome to observe zero-atmo maneuver drills. His shoulder ached, even under the brace, but he ignored it. At the far edge of the dome, he saw two cadets watching him. One leaned in and whispered something. The other shook its head. Then both saluted. No mockery, no sarcasm, just acknowledgement. It wasn't admiration. It was understanding. Back in his quarters that night, Marcus stood in front of the mirror again. The reflection looked older now, not because of time, but because of everything that had been stripped away. His hair had grown enough to shadow the scalp. Not thick yet, just enough to dull the reflection. He ran a hand over it, tender, still, but healing. He remembered the sound of the shears, the cold sting, the laugh. Interspecies cohesion requires respect of difference, not dominance through mockery. Let it be recorded that the incident with Cadet Hale stands as a permanent case study in the weaponization of underestimated tolerance. Marcus wasn't named directly, but he didn't have to be. Weeks turned into a month, the bruises faded, the scars became memories. Threx began physical therapy. Kavrecht resumed duties. The academy resumed its rotations. But nothing was quite the same. The cadets didn't joke about hair anymore, or skin, or bone density, because now they knew. Humans weren't invincible. They bled, they broke, they suffered. But when you underestimated that suffering, when you twisted it into ridicule, they didn't explode. They responded. With focus, with calculation, with terrifying, surgical clarity. Marcus finished tying the tactical wrap around his head, not to hide, not anymore, but because it reminded him what control looked like, what survival felt like. A slow, stubborn regrowth. 1 inch at a time.